But yeah, that was the other thing I was going to put in the show notes, just a note so that you can talk about that.
You know, I keep trying to play decks that make tokens because I have such cool tokens, and that don't work. I can't do that. It never works.
Okay. All right. I see us on YouTube. All right. I think we're good. We're live. And I think we are good on the show notes. That show notes that was linked, you're welcome to follow along if you would like, Nathan, if you want to open that. If not, pretty much we're just going to be asking you questions and chatting. So
cool. That sounds great. Yeah, I have that pulled up as well, and I'll follow along. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. All right. Welcome to episode 8 of the TCCG Roundtable. That's right, we're back. We're your hosts, dragonrider and Itachi. Good to see you again.
Back after what, 4 weeks, 3 weeks? I think
don't know.
I've been away.
I don't know. It's been a rough last month or so, but you know what? We are back with, I would say, a vengeance, and we have a very, very amazing special guest. So Itachi, please introduce our guest for us.
All right, in our left corner. No, I'm joking. So today we've got a fantastic guest today. World champion, Magic the Gathering world champion, battled through 14 rounds of 3 different formats: Dominaria United, Draft, Standard, and Explorer, for a massive prize pool and one of the most prestigious titles in all of trading cards, period. Magic World Champion Nathan Steuer is joining us today. Make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Steuer?
Yeah, you can pronounce it Steuer. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here and just chat about our different TCG backgrounds and just generally have a really great interview and discussion. Thank you for having me.
Before we, of course, absolutely. Before we jump in, your name sounds extremely familiar. Do you have a background in any other card game?
Good question. I actually have only played Magic. I've played Magic for the past 10 years, but funnily enough, there's another person with the exact same name as me who's apparently a poker stud. So that might be what you've noticed as well, which is a really funny coincidence. It would be. Yeah.
What are the odds of that? Oh my gosh.
I was like, is this the poker player? I wasn't sure, and I didn't go research. I should have researched, but I didn't go research because I'm super nosy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We got a small interview before we just get to chatting and rolling away. I'll let Dawn take that away. Just a couple of questions.
Yeah, definitely. So, we kind of like to ask all of our guests a little bit just about their background. Now, you already mentioned that you haven't played other card games, but like, what got you into playing cards? And I mean, you definitely are on the younger side. You said you've been playing. I mean, I've, going back even and watching your kind of world champion interview was amazing. They hit on that for sure a lot about how young you are, just how impressive this is. But like, what got you into card games, and what has your kind of history with Magic and playing been?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I started playing Magic about 10, maybe 11 or 12 years ago at this point. It's all very blurry. And I started at summer camp with the goal being that I wanted to compete in something. I've always felt that I'm a really competitive minded individual. And so before I got really into Magic, at the same time, I was a competitive soccer player, and that was kind of my passion. And then I got introduced to local level tournaments, and all my friends and I would go and play tournaments together. And I think that's kind of what got me in the door. Just the fact that you can play tournaments at the end. If you won all your games in the tournament, you would get some prizes. And at the time, you got $25 at the end of the night. And that to me was a huge win. You're like, oh my gosh, like that's more money than I've ever seen in my life when I'm 8 or 9 or 10 years old if you win all your games. And so part of the journey in that sense was just I wanted to be really good at something, and I wanted to be really good at something that I can compete with at. And so at the time, I think I was very competitive. I have a twin brother with my twin brother. And so my brother and I would compete really hard to try to do a better job than each other at the weekly tournaments. And it created this sort of rivalry that pushed me to try to improve.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I started playing card games when I was a kid. I was the oldest sibling, so we didn't really have I didn't have someone as close as that, but it's so great to be able to actually have somebody that's close to you to play with and kind of push a little bit. That's awesome. I love
Right.
that.
Yeah,
I have a
100%.
confession. I have not confessed this to anyone before, not on the show or anything. When I was when I was in school, all right, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And when I was in school, I was the only one in my school that, you play cards at the lunch table or at the breakfast table before school starts or whatever. Um, I was the only one who had any competitive playing experience out of my school. I was still, in the grand scheme of things, bad, but I was better than everyone at school by like a country mile, right? And so all the kids at school would be like playing for their cinnamon roll or like playing for playing for like $1 or something like that. And I cleaned up. I made I made so much money and snacks from just like playing kids who were completely unaware that I was like, I had been to a national level event and I played in like regionals and YCSs, and they just like play the same way that the show plays. Because like the show at the time was completely different. Like the rules were not followed in the show at all. Like you could do ridiculous things. And so like they would be playing by the show rules, and like I would be playing by the show rules too, but I would just have a way better deck. Anyway, that's my confession. I took a bunch of kids' money. Probably wasn't cool. If any of those kids are still around, sorry.
Oh my gosh.
That's how it goes
I
when
know
you're
that was
playing
random. I
competitive
just,
trading
I
card
just
games.
felt
It happens.
That's right. Yeah. That brings like a new level to the, bullying people for their lunch money
Yeah.
phrase.
it
Oh,
was
that's
bad.
hilarious. Oh, well, all right. Okay, talking about that, there's a variety of places that people play card games. They go do things. Nathan, can you please tell us what is it that you like do involving cards? I mean, other than going and just winning the whole dang world championship, like you travel a lot to tournaments. Do you do any like content or anything else besides that, or are you just like really hard focused in on competing and going to those tournaments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So outside of competing, which I would say there's multi-level like stages to that, right? And on top of competing, you're training. I have a team that I work with, and we spend a lot of time prepping together and formulating different strategies. And so that's half the process. But the major thing that I do outside of that is I'm actually a coach for Magic, and I've been coaching for about a year and some change at this point. And so one thing that I've really focused on is I've spent a lot of time learning and crafting my abilities, but there's a new level you can reach, in my opinion, when you start hearing from other perspectives. And one big part of that is even when you're playing with players who maybe don't have the same repertoire as myself, playing in competitive backgrounds, there's a lot you can learn through extrapolating your process out loud and making a process repeatable. And so
Mhm.
one thing that I like to focus on is building exercises that other people maybe haven't seen before or utilized in order to train new skills. In particular, one skill that I think I've improved on and also helped others improve on through developing is I am very good at information deduction and hand reading based on prior clues. And so one exercise that I really focused on is I'll pull up a notepad on my screen and we'll look at replays of their matches versus other high level opponents or otherwise recordings of them playing in the past. And we'll go turn by turn and do this approach where we say, okay, our opponent made this play. What's the best possible play they could have made on this turn? And if we think our opponent's playing logically, well, if they didn't make this play this turn, they only have one more look. The way Magic works, they have one more draw at that card on the next turn unless they play a new piece. And so your information lets you build on top of each other in a very organized manner. And I think that clears up a lot of the discrepancies of like learning. Well, for one, it teaches you how important it is to learn every single card in a given deck or strategy. And two, it lets you use that information in a way that a lot of players kind of ignore. And so that's the main thing that I think I've gotten better at through coaching, and also I wish to share with more people. And that's kind of partially why I still think Magic is fresh, because you can teach other people and help them level up. And I feel like I'm still improving right now.
Right, of course.
Yeah, that's a big aspect of it.
That's interesting. I started coaching Hearthstone a year and a half ago, I think. And one of the things that I noticed while I was coaching was that like making a structure and making whatever I was teaching repeatable, so that once they left the coaching session, they could continue to build on the concepts that I had taught, gave me so much insight into the way that I was playing on it. Because Hearthstone being a virtual card game, it's very easy to lull yourself into making very autopiloted plays and not taking into account the information that you get on a turn-by-turn basis just by what they play, where they play it from, left side of the hand, right side of the hand, because nothing changes. There's no hand shuffling in Hearthstone, obviously. But same concept in Magic, where I didn't play as much, but I've played Magic before, and there's a lot of information that you get, especially in a resource-based game, where you can extrapolate a lot based off what your opponent does and doesn't do, and levels to it based on how quickly they do it, how with what kind of conviction they're playing their cards in. There's tons and tons of information that you get constantly, and being able to take that and compress it into a teachable concept it speaks levels about your proficiency at the game.
Right. I really appreciate that parallel as well, because I think a lot of players in probably all trading card games don't really understand the tangible steps they can take to improve. And so as a coach, my goal is not to help someone make the best play on a given turn. I think that that's information that doesn't translate very well to learning, because I could tell you what I think the best play is, and I'd probably be right the majority of the time given my practice. I don't care if you're making the right play. You just have to know why you're making a play. So the thing that I try to get people to do is, when we're doing an exercise, you have to justify your plays, even if it seems really obvious, every step of the way. And sometimes they're like, well, okay, there's only one possible thing. And I'm like, well, what if you didn't do it? Is that better? And so going through that process, that step by step, really eliminates this autopiloting component to a degree that it's such an ingrained aspect of card games when you're just playing for fun, or when you're playing on a ladder system. Even I do it when I'm playing on a ladder system. Sometimes it happens, but you have to figure out methods and ways of getting your awareness and centering it around like what is happening right now and what small details do I have to be aware of. So yeah, I totally resonate with what you said.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I was like, I'm like cheering almost when you said that, because I was talking about that on my stream like a couple of days ago. It's like, when you're especially learning and you're trying to improve, like, I don't care if your reason is terrible, but give me a reason why you're making the plays you're making, right? Like if you want to improve, because then you can start to identify, oh, maybe my reasoning is off, or you can figure out like where you need to adjust from there. But if you aren't even looking at the level of why you're doing something, then you just kind of get into autopilot plays, or you just do it because that's what I think I'm supposed to do, instead of, pivoting your game plan or changing things based on what's happening, what your opponent is doing, what cards you have or have not drawn. And yeah, that's such an important aspect. And I just want to, I think my mother hen instinct is also kicking in here. You talked about details and your coaching. You coach on Metafy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do.
You definitely need to go update that, because it still says that you're a 2022 world champion competitor, and that definitely needs to be updated to reflect that. We need to get more people in there.
That's a good call. I think I missed that.
You're shooting yourself short, Nate.
No, I think I just updated it, but I appreciate it. I see it. I'm looking back on Twitter. I'm like, okay, Oh, you're saying on Metafy itself. You're right. You're totally
Yeah.
right. I forgot that.
Yes. Yeah, I was
That's
looking at
one
that
more
earlier
step.
going, competitor? No. We need to give you all the credit where that credit is due.
Well, I
Absolutely. And of
appreciate that. Yeah, a lot.
course.
And that's it's a big thing because for me when I'm talking to coaching clients, um I don't really mind if someone just wants to do one session and like get that insight that they can hold on to. But my hope is I talk to someone and they feel like afterward I want some other people that I'm friends with to like have this interaction and like learn and come back because they need to learn this methodology and maybe they're like, okay, now I learned it, I can teach it myself. That's fine. That's perfect. If you can teach what I taught to you, then I'm doing a good job.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And we'll
Um,
definitely have that all plugged and linked as well. So anybody that may be listening to this, if you are interested in checking out getting coaching with Nathan, we'll have that all linked and plugged.
uh, so last real thing in terms of like interviewing you, trying to figure out where you've been and what you've done in the game. So we know that you were world champion. We know that you obviously qualified through the world champion. You qualified to the world championship, and you did that through the challenger leaderboard, if I'm not mistaken. Um, can you talk about some of your other accomplishments in the game where you something that may be significant to you? You can talk about maybe different events that you've topped or finishes that you've had or anything like that. Tell me about that because I don't completely know. I'm not gonna act like I do know. I do know
Yeah.
that you won worlds.
Cool. Yeah, of course. Okay, so the other really major thing that happens for me in the Magic world is I have kind of been on an upwards trajectory playing Magic Online. That's kind of my roots and where I kind of took off as a really competitive pro level player. And so at the start of COVID, I took a full send. I moved out of my family's house. I was 17 and I was taking online classes. And I just didn't have much money. And so my goal was I'm going to play Magic Online instead of working retail job. And I'm going to try to improve and use this as a way of paying rent. And so that's what I did. And it was really successful in 2020. And so digging into my heels and training ruthlessly and spending a ton of time to kind of improve my mindset and mentality around it was the step one that led me to feeling like, okay, like I can really make this and like I have a shot. I just need to stay humble and like practice and figure out how I'm not improving. And so this kind of all led into what is the probably the most premier event on Magic Online. And so the system is called the Magic Online Championship Series. And what that
Mhm.
means is 3 times a year, you will have 8 players who have qualified via pretty difficult tournaments. You either have to win 2 tournaments, one that's you have to top eight a 300 to 500 person event into winning a 24-man event based on the number of people who top eight. So 3 rounds of top eight, and then one 24-person tournament where the winner gets to this championship series event.
Mhm.
And before, how the system works is you either won this big event or you won. There's 2 opportunities to win, like a 550-person event where you can make it. And so at the end of 2020, my goal was I'm going to try to compete and make it into one of these events. And in the season of 2021 to 22, so last year, I actually qualified for all 3 8-man events in a row. So I was the only
Sick.
player that made it to all 3 of them. And in particular, the accomplishment that I'm most proud of in that cycle was one of my best friends who really taught me how to level up. His name is Sam Rolfe. He's a fellow coach and Magic Online grinder and pro player. Him and I decided we're going to shoot for this leaderboard slot. And so in the second season, they introduced the Magic Online leaderboard. So the real cool thing about it was it's the only metric of consistency that they've had for these events in the past, which
Mhm.
obviously all pro players and competitive players want some reward for consistent top eights, consistent high finishes. And how the system worked was the top 2 players at the end of this season who had the most top eights and high level finishes would qualify for the 8-man event. So that was 2 of the 8 slots. And at the end of season 2, me and my best friend Sam, who had worked together, finished in number 1 and 2. We actually both got the top 2 leaderboard positions, and we had been training together throughout the week. The events happened Saturday and Sunday, and so you have to top 8, maybe 6 events in the course of the season, and we both managed to top 8 the same number of events and clinch a finish. I think that was just a really crazy moment in season for me, and just being there with my best friend and being like, okay, like we put in the time, we got this accomplishment, was a really, really inspiring moment that made me feel like I could compete at a higher stage than even this this cycle of online play. Like I can compete on the world stage, compete and get there. And so that was my ambition at the end of 2021 leading into 22, and kind of sets the stage of like, you know, where was I before I qualified for Worlds? I was trying my best and really grinding online, where that was kind of my roots and how I established that I was here to stay.
That's insane that you and your friend qualified 1 and 2. That's just like, I don't think people can fathom how absurd of a concept that is. I have one comparable. There's 2 guys that I know in Yu-Gi-Oh! They were pretty good friends, and we have these events called Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series. They're usually 1,500 to 2,000 people events, and they cut after 12 rounds of Swiss to usually what is top 32. Super hard to top 32 out of a couple thousand people. So even harder to win. And these 2 people ended up in the finals in back-to-back events, in back-to-back 2,000 people events. They were both in the finals back-to-back. So that, like, for you and your friend to be 1-2 on that leaderboard, which rewards consistency, just shows the amount of time and effort that you guys were putting in, and the practice that you had to put in, because a lot of it's muscle memory, and essentially knowing more interactions, or having experienced more interactions than your opponent, so that like you know what to do in those interactions, is what I found.
Totally. Yeah.
So talking about the World Championship, I'm super interested because the World Championship is something that every competitive player wants to get to. It doesn't matter what game you play. If you're a competitive player, you want to get to World. So you've been there, you've experienced it. This isn't on the show notes, but I have a question. It says that you won with Grixis Midrange. So Grixis Midrange, is that a deck that you built? Did you build Grixis Midrange, or is this a deck that you like drafted?
Yeah, so before the tournament, I would say, I built the deck along with my team. However, in the whole tournament, I was the only person who decided it was the best strategy and to play it.
That's why I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because I noticed when I was looking through the bracket, I was like,
I think everybody else brought
everyone
Esper,
played
right?
Esper.
Yeah.
Everybody played Esper, and you played Grixis.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, I mean, you probably understand this, like both of you from the card game background as well, but like when you think about deck selection for tournaments, something that's always on my radar is like, are other people that I trust doing similar things to me in terms of like, I trust their deck selection. And usually when I feel like, okay, like my 4 teammates, I tested with 4 other people in the 32-man field, there was 5 of us total. If my 4 teammates all think this Esper strategy is the best, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But I had to check that instinct and be like, I trust myself. Like I've been here, and like I've played probably the most games that I've ever won on my team. Not saying they didn't play a lot, but I really wanted this. And, you know, my other partner on the team decided an hour before the tournament submission deadline to switch off the deck. He switched off our exact same 75 cards. And so I had to make a decision in split time. I was like, do I go with a strategy that I think is the best, that I have the most practice with, that I think is good versus Esper, because I think that's going to be the most popular strategy, or do I trust that my teammates are right, that it's closer versus Esper than I think, and that the other matchups are going to be more popular? Because Grixis was a flash in the pan. I'm like, okay, now it's established in the current Magic sphere as the best deck post-tournament, and with some new cards that got introduced. But prior to that, I think it was kind of up in the air what the best strategy was. And so making that decision was like, I didn't think I'd be the only person. I thought maybe 5, maybe 6 people would make that decision, but it turns out no one really had the guts. So that was hard.
Wow.
I'm just okay. I'm having flashbacks to like 2 months ago when we had Jarrell on talking about him at the Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship and how he just like brought that deck out of left field. Okay, is this like a common thing for just world champions to be like, yeah, everybody else is doing this thing, but like, nah, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do this thing and just
Do
like
something else.
win. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think going into the tournament, I thought it would be so unlikely I was the only person. It wasn't like it's an unknown strategy in general. I think everyone had the strategy on their radar. I think they just underestimated, like, I'm not sure how it works in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in Magic, you can change 5 cards and that might change an entire matchup, which is really cool thing about Magic. And so if you're 5 slots in your starting deck, so you have a starting deck in your sideboard, right? If your 5 cards in your starting deck are specifically targeted at a strategy like what I expected, it suddenly went from, okay, people think maybe it's like in terms of percentage, 52% to 48% in favor of the Grixis deck. Not that bad for Esper. It's close to, okay, it's probably closer to like 56%, 44%. Like I gained 4 percentage points, changed 5 cards, and that's a big difference when you're
That's
playing at a
significant.
world stage. Yeah, it's like that's night and day when you're playing it's the same deck every round. Your win percentage in the tournament goes up massively. So
Yeah.
Wow.
So you played Eli Cassis twice. Eli's a very established Magic player. I mean, anybody who's played the game has probably seen his
Yeah.
name. There are some very heavy names in there. Yuya Takahashi, of course, the previous world champion. Reed Duke, Eli Cassis. And so it looks like in the upper bracket you lost to him 2-1, and then you played him again. So you played Eli twice. Everyone else in between, as great players as they are, you 2-0'd them, so that's irrelevant. But like, tell me about the 2 matches with Eli and how you felt after the first loss, and then how you felt going into the final match.
So there's actually another layer of context. We played against each other one more time in the Swiss rounds of the tournament in the very final round, playing for top 4 of this World Championships. And Eli was playing a deck in a different format. It was the Explorer format that initially we thought was a good matchup for our deck, but they had this really cool sideboard strategy that kind of juked us. And so he got me really good with that strategy. And I had this sort of sickening tiebreaker sweat where it's like, am I going to make it in 4th? Am I going to get 5th? It's really hard to know, but it's out of my hands, right? It's out of my hands. So I'm going to go for a walk, turn off my phone, and I get back and they're like, come here, like you're in 4th. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And so I feel like I escaped there. I'm like, okay, he got me good in the first match before top 4. Now we're replaying again. And I got to say, playing in top 4, I knew he was going to be my scariest opponent. He's a really, really strong technical player. Not only that, one thing that some players do, I wouldn't say it's necessarily my skill set, but I really admire is he can switch things up on you at any time. Like you could have this common idea of what the best thing to do in a certain matchup is, and he'll pull a full 360 on you and like change it up. And even if it's not the conventional approach, it'll work. Like you think they're sideboarding, they're doing a certain strategy in the second and third game, and he'll juke you. And so in the first of our matches that we played, this was the semifinals. I actually, in the third game, I made a mistake that was kind of sizable. It wasn't like people wouldn't say, oh, that's like a punt or anything like that, but I played a card that ended up being the wrong card on the third turn of the game. I'd been in similar situations many times testing, and my justification for it was wrong. And so that stung a lot. I was like, oh my gosh, like looking back at this game, like I made this mistake and my reason for doing it wasn't very good.
Right.
And so the game was super close, came down to the last few cards to the wire. Following that, I'm in the lower bracket. I win 2 rounds in a row versus other strong players. They were on Esper as well. I felt really confident. I had a few hours off between the sets, and I felt good. So that reset period was huge. But immediately before that, like they just been like, okay, you're playing your set, you're done, great. You're gonna play your next set right away. And then they were like, okay, 10 minutes and then you're in the finals. So I was kind of a blur, right? And I knew I'm playing against what I consider one of the strongest players in the tournament.
Mhm.
And so in the finals, it's best 2 out of 3 matches, which for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity. Like, I think if I'm 56%, just arbitrary number, how it feels, then if I get to run it 2 out of 3 times, I'm going to have a bigger edge. Feels good. The only downside being I always start second because he was the higher seed. That came as a factor. And so I knew that was going to be a big thing. I lose the first match, 2 out of 3, really close. We go to 3 games, and it's a nail biter. In the second set, there's this really huge moment. So I'm playing game 1 of the second set, and he has this card with an ability. It's like when it dies, you look at the top 7 cards of your library. You can put any number of creatures that equal 7 total cost into play. And so when you're looking at 7 cards and you get to put 7 cost into play, maybe it's 5 cost. Either way, when you get to put that many to play, it's going to be really unlikely that they miss on that effect. They get to look at so many cards. Actually, correction, they get to put 4 CMC into play, but still, it's like you get this really huge ability. I'm behind in the game, and through my noise deafening headphones, I hear the crowd and they're gasping. And so in this huge spot, he misses on his opportunity. He misses on 7 cards.
Wow.
And I make a comeback in a game that I thought I was internally like 5% to win. So I think that was like the deciding moment of like, okay, like I got this. I got to like take the reins back. I win that game, at least the second game. And then third game, I clutch it. I'm like, okay, we're going to the final set for everything. We start the third set. I lose the first game, and I'm like, I'm really gonna have to fight from behind. I win a really tough second game, and then really anticlimactically, actually, in the third game of the match, he gets mana screwed. He's no longer able to cast his spells. I just have to make sure that I'm sequencing ideally and not giving him any windows to get back ahead. But fittingly, I end the game by casting the card Invoke Despair, which kills him, which deals him 4 damage for lethal. So that was the end of the worlds, and it was really just this moment of like, could he have won one of these games? Yes. There was an opportunity that he missed looking back at it. I looked back at the replays and was like, this is good material to look back at. He had this opportunity to win in a game that he missed.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't clear, but if you go back, you're like, okay, this was his window. He loses this game. This really unlikely thing happens in the game where he misses on his ability, but he also made a slight mistake that cost him. So those are the edges, man. Like when you're playing these stakes, the edges are so razor thin. Like you can't be caught making even one mistake, or else you're going to get punished by it.
And it's having been in a place where I'm playing in front of like a crowd, or I'm playing on a big stream, and knowing that a ton of people are watching, it's definitely a different feeling when you make a mistake and you catch especially when you catch your mistake. If you make a mistake and you don't know it and you think you're playing well, I think you're more likely to succeed later if you get the chance. But like when you make a mistake and you catch it, it hurts because you know everyone else caught it, like, or you feel like in your head everyone else caught it. I know I did that at a DreamHack when I was playing against a Grandmaster level Hearthstone player. I played a card that couldn't activate under the conditions that were. I missed something that had happened earlier, and I couldn't play the card. I shouldn't have played the card, and I did. And I was like, "Oh my god!" I ended up winning the match, but it was definitely a feeling of like crap.
Yeah, totally.
So,
yeah, I would like to ask the next question if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I am curious now, coming from, maybe some more like casual style play or other card games, like in Hearthstone, pretty much the tournaments, you just play one format, one kind of type of play. But for this championship, and I know I was actually looking at the Eternal Championship that's coming up next weekend. It looks like they almost copied the Magic World Championship like style of format. What was it like to actually have to play 3 different formats and be competitive in those. And like, how did you prepare yourself to have to play 3 formats and do well in them?
Great question. So the big thing, and this is a resource that I really don't take for granted, is my team of 4 other people were really, really good and proficient workers when it comes to spreading information and sharing. And I would say we're one of the better teams in Magic. We worked with a team of 5. We actually had 10 people qualified for Worlds, or 10 or 9. We split it into 2 teams. And so we each, it was too big of a crowd to work together for such a small field. So we split into 2 teams. And when you're testing for 3 formats, we had to figure out our priorities, right? So the first big thing is the limited format, which was Dominaria United Draft. And in this limited format, which means like you're opening the booster packs, you take 1 card from the pack. You guys are probably familiar somewhat with draft concepts in general, but in Magic, for what we had to do, we basically would draft in an internal pod. So we would get 8 people, and they were all Worlds level competitors. So you knew every single time, instead of playing online where you'd play against, ladder level players, we would play with the best of the best, and it really sped up the learning process. Everyone would post their conclusions. And so that process, I think, was really ideal. Like talking to other Worlds competitors afterward, it sounds like they didn't really have that arranged. They maybe had less resources, maybe 3 to 5 people, but they never got a full group of 8 high-level players to spend their time trying to dissect this format. And the limited portion is very important. Actually, we'll go back to that in a minute to make a comment. But the second part, which is this Explorer format, is very difficult because this is a format that no one had actually ever played. It was a port from a previous format that's only available on the online client, not on Arena, but they hadn't added about a quarter of the high impact cards to the format. So it's just this middle ground where we're not sure what's going on fully. We have to figure it out. And we made some mistakes here. Collectively, our team did kind of poorly in this format. We had a strategy that we thought was good, but Eli Cassis' team had this really, really strong counter that I talked about in their sideboard. So a matchup that we previously thought was good got completely turned on its head by 4 cards that they found. And so, or I suppose 1 card that they added 4 of, really, it was just that difference. It was, they found a 4 of that they could add to their deck, and that really messed up our entire process in retrospect. But we found a strategy. We thought it was good, and it ended up being kind of run-of-the-mill average. I would not play it again, but I think it could have gone much worse. And then in Standard, it was weird because they actually announced to Worlds players only that there was going to be a banning about a month into testing. There was going to be a banning in the format, which is a really, really peculiar thing to do when you know that Worlds has been testing for at least a month. But so be it. They were going to ban stuff. They gave us a week heads up and said, don't test this format while we figure out what we're banning. A really, really weird move, but nonetheless, like, you work with what you got. You got to like figure out how to not get screwed over by stuff like this. And the card that everyone thought was going to get banned, which is called Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's the card that I had 4 of in my deck, in the Grixis deck. What kind of separates Esper from Grixis was not touched. Instead, they hit another piece that was sort of crucial, changed some information, but that decision being made about a week and a half before the deadline for deck submission put us in a crunch. So we devoted a lot of resources to figuring out what to do after that happened. And at the end, we had 2 decks that we thought were good, and our team split 4-1 on those decks. I was the lone Grixis. There was the 4 Espers, and that was the process of kind of dissecting it. That's kind of like where we ended up. The process was a little more granular, a little more, how are you going to convince your team through different iterations that certain cards are better or worse. And so we decided to do the trial and error method. We basically tried every possible thing we could think of and played a raw number of games. And then we added some smarter people as well to give us their opinions. And it's a trust-based system, right? Like when you're in that situation. You have to trust your teammates for their information. And if you can't trust their conclusions, then there's an issue that will end up hurting the whole team at the end. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have two, one question, one statement. Statement being, Reflection of Kiki Jiki is one of my favorite names I've ever seen on the card. So just interesting that was the card that you guys thought was going to get banned. Second, you are a 100% lock for Worlds next year. Do you feel the competitive itch to play as much as you played leading up to this Worlds for next year, knowing that you're already there, you're already qualified?
I am going to try really hard to compete in these Pro Tour events, which are upcoming. There's going to be 3 this year. And the main reason for that is one of my aspirations, even before I even dreamed of being the world champion and trying to get to the world champion stage, was I want to top 8 a Pro Tour event, because that felt a lot more obtainable. And I kind of skipped a step, which is okay. But I would love to have that title under my belt, just so that I could say, like, I've at least achieved everything in Magic. That's kind of the last thing that I'm like, I would love to be able to say I top 8 at a Pro Tour. And the Pro Tour is one of the most meaningful things to old school players in terms of like what they think of. So that's my next goal. And there are a few of those upcoming, but we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I'm taking a little bit of a step back and embracing the coaching.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, you have a history of finishing first, because you finished first in season 2 and 3 championship series, first showcase.
Yeah.
So, and then you finished first at Worlds. So maybe you'll win a Pro Tour this year. I'm pretty sure it's obtainable at this point. Dawn, you want to go to the next question? I think we only have 1 or 2 more. Oh yeah, the trophy.
Yeah. How heavy is that trophy? Gotta know.
It's been weighed. I believe it's 22.5 pounds.
What?
Dang.
That thing's huge.
That is impressive. Yes.
Yeah.
I love
It's not
it.
a very mobile trophy, but that's okay. That's how I get my reps in between my matches, you know, just up and down.
Yeah.
Just get a
That
couple
that
pumps.
seems like the true like gamer type of workout. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I did want to ask you as well, just a quick, like you already kind of touched on this, but if you could give, because we don't need to like take your entire strategy or anything, but if you could give people like one piece of advice for trying to find a play group or a play testing group to push themselves further when they're trying to be competitive, like what one piece of advice would you give for people looking for that?
Good question. I would say the best methods of doing it are getting involved in the Magic Twitter sphere and also in the Discord sphere, and then basically cold calling people who you see that appear to be on similar levels than you. There's some level of like, you need to prove your worth in a group, which only comes from time, motivation, and demonstration of like effort. And so what I've seen and what I've done is there is inevitably going to be some way of sifting through higher and higher level of groups of players, like finding more competitively minded players, and that's just kind of natural when you get involved in the process. But I would say the big thing is, yeah, you need to get involved first of all, and then reach out to people. Like a lot of the people who I talk to are super duper nice. There are open communities in Magic that I'm a part of that I chat with people on. They can message me. They can message hundreds of other grinder level players and ask them to form a smaller group. Just look for a group of 10 to 20 players who are have similar goals, and show up in practice. Like people reward behavior like that. Like if you're showing up every day and you're practicing, you're staying humble and you're asking good questions, you're not asserting yourself in a way that's trying to prove you're really good at something, then that's going to go a long way. And yeah, I mean, I assume it's very similar. I don't know how similar it is from your guys' background, but yeah, it's really important.
I'll tell you, in Yu-Gi-Oh, actually, I found this in Yu-Gi-Oh and Hearthstone. there are like cliques of players who are like top tier players, and it's like a ladder. Like you have to reach that level of competitiveness to be like seen in those tiers. Like I didn't know any of the top level Yu-Gi-Oh players until I like started having top finishes at championship level events. So like once I topped, and it wasn't even after my first top, I had topped like 2 or 3 times before people were like hearing the ideas that I had and like listening to like my perspective and stuff. I had people who were on like my level before I got there, and then as like I continued to climb, um, that's when I would see more people. So I guess it's like relative to the level that you're on, and like you have to have the ability and like the drive and motivation to take yourself a tier up a lot of the times from the group that you're a part of, because usually you're going to attract and socialize with the people that are like similar level to you in terms of playing.
Right. Right. I hear you with like, you really want to try to play with better players. Obviously, that system won't work for everyone. At some point, you're going to have to accept players who are worse for this to work. But what I look for when my team and myself and others are trying to find new ads is I look for people who fall into the category of like high motivation, humbleness, demonstration of effort, and when you get a combination of those things, it doesn't take long for very good players to help another player improve, is my experience.
Right.
Um, like, yeah, pros get formulated by having those sorts of groups, and inevitably, the sort of cliquishness is going to be a part of card game backgrounds or like any sort of competitive background, right? Like, if you want to get better at something, you're going to want to work with good players. But prove that you're here and you want to compete, and people will give you more chances than you think.
For sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
So everyone listening, what he said was, "Don't message me." No, I'm joking. Um, so we've got what is called the lightning round. It is just a quick gut reaction questions, one after the other. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. So ink blot test, basically. Um, I'll start and we'll ask them 4 in a row. Okay. Did I lose you? Hopefully not.
Okay.
Okay,
Can
there
you
we
hear
go.
me?
Yeah, I
Yes.
can hear you. Okay. So if you were any card in the Magic universe, what card would you be?
I would be Rally the Ancestors. One of my favorite cards.
That's sick, actually.
All right. Next question is, what is your favorite type or archetype of deck to play?
I like to play mid-range leaning tempo decks. So decks that press their advantage and can also turn and grind when you are playing a longer game.
Okay. You kind of answered this, but what's one goal you have for yourself in the card game sphere?
Yeah, I'd love to top Beta Pro Tour, and I'd love to help someone else make it to the World Championships.
That's awesome. Love that. All right. Last one that we have typed in here is, do you prefer physical or digital cards?
I prefer digital cards for competing and physical tournaments for the experience. So it's kind of a little bit of both.
Yes.
And is so one question that's not included, is there any other card game that you've had interest in?
Yes, I am interested in. It's not really a trading card game, but I'm interested in playing poker and improving at that. I've done some studying in that space, and I'll probably move some of my time into practicing.
I feel like a lot of card game players who compete at a high level end up moving to poker. Like if you can
Yeah.
understand the concepts of Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that. I had a good friend. His name was Chi Hoi Yim. He was a really good Magic player, and then he started playing poker as well. So uh, lots of people I know make that transition. So super possible. I play a lot myself. Um, I played a ton when I went to, or the few times that I've been to Vegas. I've always played a few tables, and it's interesting what you see when you play just like at a a random table, as opposed to like what you watch if you like watch high level play.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to chat with you and kind of pick your brain on some of this. But is there anywhere that people can go and find you, follow you, reach out to you about your coaching or anything else that you just want to plug or share?
Sure. First, I just want to say thank you both, Itachi and Don, for your interviewing skills and helping with technical difficulties. And just in general, I really appreciate the way you guys conducted this conversation. I found it really rewarding, and it was a pleasure. So reach out if you need anything in the future. I'm happy to communicate. In terms of finding me, I'm most active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Nathan Steuer 1, and you are welcome to DM me. My DMs are open at any time. Additionally, I have Metafy set up with, I believe, the same Metafy as my Twitter. So if you want to do any coaching sessions with me or otherwise figure out some way that I can give you any sort of lessons or teach you, please feel free to message me or book directly through that link. Otherwise, yeah, that's everything for me. Thank you.
Once I start playing Magic again, which it'll inevitably happen because I always end up back at like old card games, and I played a fair amount of time ago, maybe I don't know. I don't even know what the deck was called. All I know is I played a lot of Terminus and a lot of Entreat the Angels.
Classics.
Yeah, but once I circle around and get back to Magic, I'll definitely be reaching out for some coaching. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and have a really great rest of your round table.
thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much again to Nathan for joining us. That was incredible. I hope everybody enjoyed that interview. That was awesome. There was a lot of really good insight.
Hard to get the booking of a world champion, but I am glad he was so willing and able to respond. He was super responsive every time I messaged him. Very humble, very respectful. So that's something that I do appreciate, and don't take that for granted for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I don't know about you, but even after hearing him talk about like the play groups and play testing, I'm like, I'm all pumped. I'm ready. I'm like, all right, like play testing groups, like for Hearthstone or whatever. I'm like, all right. How am I gonna form these play testing groups? I'm ready. Let's go.
I know, right? I'm trying to get some testing in. I wish I was there was something like big to compete in, but there's like nothing because ladder currently doesn't matter until like next month, and then there's worlds, but like
I know
I'm not playing in that.
It's so weird this time of year, like, and especially now that I've really been diving into more card games and like following the news and trying to follow more card games, which we will talk about the news and some competitive stuff here in a minute. But like, it's amazing. Like all of the games, they all within like a month and a half period, all this time of year, from like October to like December.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's when all the world championship happens. That's that's like there's no really
There's nothing for the
competitive
peasants.
stuff for
Yeah.
that,
No
yes,
scraps on the table.
that's one way to say it. Yes. Yeah, and then then outside of that, all of a sudden it's like the new year starts and then just like everything starts back up. So if you're somebody who tries to be competitive or plays multiple things, like good luck.
Yeah,
when
definitely.
that
Good
all
luck.
starts up. Well, let's start talking about some news and some competitive and organized play. It has been several weeks. I tried to kind of just get the most like recent or kind of biggest news pieces that we haven't gotten to discuss the last couple of weeks because of holidays and other things that have been happening. Otherwise, we would be here for like 2 hours just talking about news that's happened the last like 3 weeks. So not doing that. But for news, we did have the Hearthstone expansion, March of the Lich King, did launch this past Tuesday. That was just Tuesday, December 6th. So that came out, that launched, including the new class Death Knight. So I've been playing the crap out of it, and honestly making my own deck, and I feel like I'm being successful with it, and I'm impressed. And I got a compliment saying that it looked like an Edelweiss deck, and anybody that knows her, like, I took that as a huge compliment. I was like, like, deck building queen. So I have been enjoying the heck out of this last few days of expansion. I don't know how much you've gotten to play your knots of the expansion.
I've played a bit. I've played a little bit, and it seems fun so far. All except for the shock splitter card that got nerfed. That was a little anti-interactive, but everything else, I had a ton of fun. It seems it seems like Hearthstone is going away. And it could just be because we're in a 6 set meta, but going away from aggressive decks because it seems like it's really hard to be like a good aggro deck because a lot of the decks that I was playing against had very high health totals. The Death Knight deck that I played against had like 70 health at some point, like regular HP, and then like at the end of the game played like a Reno to like go back up. Druids gain a ton of armor still. So there's a lot of anti-aggro play currently. Like I said, it could just be we're in a meta where there's a ton of cards available to all the players. So that usually bodes less well for aggro. Aggro is usually good at the beginning of expansion cycles, and then control's better at the end because there's more cards available. So interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah. Well, and some of those cards also have been touched with balance changes. And honestly, Hearthstone and Eternal, actually both in the last couple of days, have released balance patches because both of them have their World Championship coming up next weekend. And we'll dive a little bit more into that when you cover that. But both games were like, all right, here's some balance changes. Got to get that covered. So we'll have those linked if you want to check out the Hearthstone or the Eternal balance changes. But honestly, like, one of the Eternal changes I feel like is kind of huge for Eternal, and it was basically changing the way that the Unleash mechanic works, which yeah, it used to be that cards with Unleash couldn't cost less than 1, but now the copies of Unleash cards can't be reduced, like, period. So there was a lot of mechanics in decks before where you'd play an Unleash card and get a copy of it, and then it would be discounted, or you would discount a whole bunch and play a whole bunch of copies. And now you can't reduce those copies at all. Like, a week before the World Championship, I'm like, oh, that seems huge.
That's a big change. That's like huge. That's a massive change.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of nutty. I saw that and I'm like, oh, what? And they said, well, yeah, it's a kind of minor change. Dude, so what? What kind of change now?
That doesn't sound minor at all.
No. But the Unleash came out in like April-ish. So, it's had its time. I think every card game kind of has that, where like after a certain mechanic or certain cards or certain types of things have been kind of around for a little while, then it's like, okay, it had its time. Like, people got to do that. Now let's change it and not let them do that. But Denathrius and, like you said, that Shock Spitter card being changed leading up to this World Championship as well. So very interesting to see this kind of similarity between these card games and how soon they're changing cards before major events. And another exciting thing that happened, Marvel Snap won the title of Best Mobile Game at the Game Awards. Ooh, congratulations. That was exciting. Like,
it was just released.
And like 2 months ago. Yeah. Not even. Wait, it launched worldwide, like out of open beta, October 18th. I was like 16th, no, 18th. Yeah, you're right. Today's December 9th.
So less than 2 months.
Wow. Yeah.
To be fair, it's very good.
It is.
One thing that I'm realizing is that I don't play enough to reach infinite. Like, I don't play nearly enough to reach infinite. And it's kind of weird because like you have to gain 100 ranks to get to infinite, right? Which is a lot. But like you go back 30 ranks. So if you're like infinite, if you're like 100, you go back to 70, right? So going from 70 to 100 seems a lot more doable than I'm currently at 10 because I was at like 50 and then I got back up to, I went down to 20 and then I went back up to 40 and then I went back down to 10 and I was like, crap, man, that seems tough. So wondering how I'm going to get to infinite without like overexerting because I play so many different things. I can play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, or I play Yu-Gi-Oh, I play Hearthstone, I play Marvel Snap. So it's like, I guess you'd have to be a dedicated Snap player to get to infinite like consistently.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't think I've even played Snap in the last like 2 weeks. I think I
I'll
just
play every
gave
day.
up because I was like, I suck at this. Like, I think I just feel like I'm terrible at the game, so I just gave up. I was like, I can't keep up with this. Like,
I play like every day.
I don't know. Yeah. I I'm also like I think as I continue, like I'm already a pretty competitive person, but honestly, I think the last like little while I've started to really get more and more competitive. So I'm like, when I play a game, there's no game. It's not fun. No, we're not about fun. Like I'm
We're not
going
having
into
fun.
that to like yeah, like
Trying to
I'm
win. We're
going
not
into
having
that
fun.
to yeah. Like to me, winning is fun. I'm like, I want to go in the game and win. And when I wasn't doing that in Snap, and then I couldn't get the cards that like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, other people are like recommending this deck, or I see my opponents like kick my teeth in with these certain cards, and I'm like, oh, I want to try that. And then I go into my collection, I'm like, oh, well, I can't do that, and I can't get those cards. So I guess I
It
just
is that's
mindlessly
frustrating.
grind, and I'm like, this like nah, I want to get to my things now. Like I don't want to mindlessly grind with stuff that I don't care about or whatever to get to the things. So like I don't have that
No,
the
I don't
patience
blame
for
you.
that. That's okay. I will say instead, uh, you mentioned a little while back about the uptick in um, Fab news and the Flesh and Blood stuff. So
Yeah.
update. I am. I spent like too much money. I will just say, and ordered a bunch of cards. Ordered a bunch of cards
It's okay.
to put some decks together, and my husband and I have been planning. There's the pro tour qualifier events all start. They're running next
Oh,
month.
sick.
So I found some that are close. So we're gonna go to at least one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm like, well, I guess we better get these cards and like practice playing these decks. So
Heck yeah.
and it's kind of cool because the one that we found actually is going to have $1,000 prize pool split between top eight. So I'm like, not expecting to get top eight, but also I'm like, that's pretty cool.
That's something to aim for, though. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, instead of Marvel Snap, I guess I was like, let me just spend a bunch of money on Flesh and
Let
Blood
me
cards
just.
instead.
How about these physical cards, though? How about
Yeah,
that?
how about that? Oh gosh, yes.
I
So
mean, if the game gets popular, they'll only appreciate with value. And from what
yeah,
I know about Flesh and Blood, is that the high rarity stuff is like expensive.
yeah.
But like
All
it's
right.
accessible because a lot of the cards are available in lower rarity. But like if you want
Hmm.
the high rarity versions, from what I hear, it's very expensive.
Yeah, it definitely can be. But moving on to our other news, then we also have the Pokemon TCG changes have been announced for Scarlet and Violet. The upcoming stuff, we have the article linked there, but basically looks like some kind of cosmetic stuff. Talking about kind of the borders of the cards, looking at that. So, like the classic yellow border framing of the cards
Hmm.
is going to transition to the silver
Silver.
border that's been used in Japan. Yeah, which I think makes sense. Like trying to change it to all be consistent seems pretty nice, but definitely going to be a change for those of us who haven't been playing with the Japanese cards or looking at those.
A
Um,
big change in that is also the packs increasing in price.
yeah, Yeah, due to inflation and a lot of other stuff, those are increasing. Honestly, so actually during this month of December, I'm doing what I'm calling 25 days of Paxmas. And I actually
Yeah, yeah.
have, yeah, so I went out and got a bunch of like envelopes, and I have, them all numbered and mixed up. And I do a physical pack and a digital pack every day with one of those envelopes. Um, and I've been opening some, but yeah, when I was getting the packs, I was looking, I'm like, dang, like these, even just from like the last time that I bought physical cards, which has been a while, but even the last time I looked at physical cards, I feel like a lot of those packs have increased, because I always remember them being, for a long time, they were always like $3 or $4. And now they're going up
Yep.
4.5, $5 or $6 even. I saw some
$5.
some
Yeah.
are some are $6. I'm like, oh my gosh. So
That
yeah.
inflation is hitting hard.
Yeah.
Um, but they are doing some things that are to combat that. So like the price of them are going up by 50 cents. Um, but there's going to be 3 guaranteed foil cards per booster. And then like elite trainer boxes or ETBs, which I have, if you look here, will now come with an additional booster pack and a full art promo card. So they'll come with more stuff to compensate for the fact that they're going to be charging more for packs. So I think that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a lot of companies would just say, "Up inflation," and then just raise the price without changing
Yeah,
anything. So yeah,
just
the fact
like
that they
packs are
are
going
kind of,
up.
yeah, yeah. So that's pretty interesting. I didn't see, and maybe I missed it somewhere, but I didn't see if it was announced like when the Scarlet and Violet cards are coming. I don't know if you happen to see that or not.
Wait,
Um,
what'd you say? You
when
said like when are
the
they making the changes?
Yeah, like when are the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet cards coming?
It'll just be the next scheduled set release. It'll be the Scarlet and Violet set release because they were Sword and Shield, I believe.
Right.
And so now they'll be Scarlet and Violet. And so that next set, Silver Tempest, I think, was the last Sword and Shield set, and that just came out. So I think we're another like
Yeah.
month and a half away
Okay.
from the
Yeah, I
next.
didn't
Which
see like a date, and I don't know if they have like an actual schedule somewhere. So
right. Yeah, I
didn't
don't
see that.
know the exact launches. I think they're a couple of months apart. It seems like they're very. It always feels like they're very close because it seems like once a set comes out, then there's like already another set that's about to come out, and I'm like, God.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, they've been, yeah. Pokemon and Magic, I think both, like they've been putting out a lot of
A
sets.
lot of product, yeah.
Lots of products.
That's what they do
Um,
around Christmas, though. That's like the thing.
yeah. And then we also had, thank you to one of our viewers in the live stream, also letting us know and making us aware that Genshin actually released a card game. Genus Invocation TCG is an original card game that became playable in Genshin Impact as of yesterday. I think was that. Let me see where. Let me see when this article came out. Wednesday, so it came out Tuesday as well. I guess the same date as the Hearthstone expansion. There's so many card games. So many card
I know.
games. It's incredible. But that's pretty much it that I have for news. And again, we've kind of missed some weeks, so probably missed something in there, but we'll try to, catch back up with everything. But what do we have, Itachi, for the competitive and organized play?
So we've got a couple of world championships. We've got Hearthstone World Championship next weekend, the 16th through the 18th. It's going to be 16 players, some really, really good players, best of the best. I don't know if there's anyone that I don't know if there's anyone that I've been like, that person should be at Worlds, but everyone I think should be at Worlds is pretty much at Worlds. It's going to start at 3 a.m. Eastern each day. So it's going to be a very, very early broadcast if you're in North America. And if you're on the West Coast, good luck. I'm usually up for work at 2:30, so I'll probably catch some of the games early before I start working. So at least I'll get to see some of that. That'll be linked. Eternal also is having the World Championship the 17th and 18th. It's going to be 3 format play, kind of like Magic World Championships. And throughout the broadcast stream, there will be announcements and card reveals for their next set, which will be coming in January 2023. So they'll be doing some spoilers and updates as their World Championship goes on. So that'll be linked as well. And then we've got Flesh and Blood, Don's favorite TCG. They announced their 2023 competitive organized play information, including confirming that there will be that $1 million prize pool minimum for 2023. That is $1 million, million with an M. That is 6 zeros, 7 figures. That's a lot of money, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that'll be linked as well on Fat TCG. So Flesh and Blood is coming in strong in the card game pool. They really want to get their events out. They really want to get their name in there. And Don, you're in on the ground floor. So good luck to you. I hope you qualify for that pro tour, because you can bring home that million, some of that million.
Yeah. Now that million is spread across like the whole system for the year. So they actually do have a breakdown in that article that we'll have linked. But 300,000 of that is for the World Championship, which they did. What was God, it's all blurring together. I don't know, just like a month ago, 5 weeks ago now. This year's World Championship, which was the first one, was also that $300,000 prize pool. So they're kind of keeping that same system, and then the rest of it's kind of split throughout the other levels of play. But yeah, minimum they're doing this, and apparently this year 2022 was they kind of have a little bit of a history in that article as well. I was reading. This was the first year they really did like organized play and really set it up and had like structure and all of that as well. So they are trying to keep that promise of that 1 million. We've talked about that as well for the Battle Saga game coming out. So, these card games are really trying to push that big prize pool, keep people invested.
Yeah, definitely. And it's working. Yu-Gi-Oh! YCS Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series Remote Duel is tomorrow. And Sunday, it is this weekend. That is a championship level event similar to their in-person events. It is going to be online, where you will take your camera and you'll be on Discord. It's played all on Discord. You turn your camera down so that you can see the desk, kind of like this. And you play your deck like that. So that's going to be this weekend. I will be competing in that. So hopefully I do well. Hopefully I don't do well. And hopefully I do well. I have a family event tomorrow. And my family event is going to require me to leave after like round 3. But if I'm like 3-0, that's going to suck. So trying to figure out what to do in that situation. But I'm just going to, I'll just drop. I'll just have a little bit of fun. And if I'm just feeling the itch like really, really great, we'll just go to the family event later and we'll see how that plays out. So, shout out to my family. Also, just as a note of clarity and openness, I've been working on vulnerability as a human being, so I really like to be able to express. But I missed the last couple of weeks, not only because of Thanksgiving and Black Friday, which was huge for I work in retail at one of the largest retailers in the world. So Black Friday is like the day, the week. And then after that, there were tons and tons of things going on. And then this past week I missed. I was supposed to be back, but I missed because a dear person to me, my great-grandfather, my pop, passed away, taught me a ton of lessons. It's not often that you get to grow up with a great-grandparent. I grew up with a great-great-grandparent and a great-grandparent. So I was super, super lucky, and I spent a lot of time with him, and I was his first grandchild, therefore his favorite, first great-grandchild. So I was also his favorite. And so it was tough to see him go home for the last time. So that is why I was out. I'm glad to be back, though. Feeling rejuvenated, feeling ready. Took some time off of work to kind of go through my grieving process, which I was able to do. And because I was able to do that, I feel a lot better about the situation now, and can continue life on as normal. So glad to be here. I just want to let everybody know where I had been, just so it's clear.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you back, absolutely, and glad that you had that time. That's something that's super, super important. I've gone through, something very similar a couple of months ago, I think right before we started the show. So yeah, definitely understand that. But I feel like it was a sign, and I know you and I talked about this, but there was a bit of a scheduling conflict, and Nathan wasn't available last week. So we pushed our interview with Nathan to this week. And then you told me that, and it was like, I feel like that was an absolute sign that like we're just not going to have a show like last week. It's fine. We'll just, we'll take the time. We'll do what we need to do. Recenter, get back on with everything this week, and kick it off with that awesome interview that we got to do with Nathan. So,
And I appreciate that, because I was gonna do, yeah, for everybody listen, I was gonna do the show and just be like, I was like, Don, just like, so that
good.
had a death, I might be emotional, I might not, just in case I like have to take a step away during the interview or during the talk or anything like that. I was just like, and then she was just like, Nathan couldn't come today, and that's probably a sign that like you should just take some time. And I was like, I didn't even think it. Normally I think about stuff like that, or my wife thinks about stuff like that, and she's she's the one that's like, it's a sign, and I'm like, all right. But
Yeah.
thank you for that. So glad to be back.
Yes. Well, I am glad that we're back too. And, it's early, middle December, however you want to look at it. So, of
Early
course,
mid-December.
holidays. Yeah. So holiday time and still lots of stuff going on. For some people, it's an insanely busy and, incredibly amazing time of year. For other people, it's like the worst time of year for them. So, it's just all over the place this time of year, but we'll try to still be here as much as we can, chat about cards. And man, next week, like I don't know how I'm gonna do things next week. I'm gonna be like Hearthstone World Championship up on one screen, like maybe trying to check out the Eternal World Championship on the other screen. I'm gonna be trying to play. Hopefully my Flesh and Blood cards start coming in so that I can start getting my decks together. Like, it's good. And the next 2 weeks, I'm also going to be doing one of those like kind of part-time temporary jobs for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was unexpected, but was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I will be
You're going to be tied
busy. Up. Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, anything else that I know we kind of did our show a little bit out of order today, but because we had Nathan on, and he had a little bit of like, a time limit. So wanted to respect that. We made sure that we rearranged how we normally, order the show. So we got to all of this later, but
I forgot.
Yes.
In terms of news, Diablo 4. If you pre-purchase Diablo 4, you get open beta early access. That is happening right now. In your Blizzard client, you can pre-purchase Diablo 4, which will be releasing soon. And like I said, you'll get early beta access, and you'll be able to play it a little bit sooner than everyone else.
Okay, be right back. Going to go do that and play. So I guess see you next week. No, yeah, I go. Me and my husband are super excited for that. Like, and actually, our wedding anniversary is in April, and his birthday is 2 days before that. And originally, I think there was speculation or chatter that it was coming out in April. So we were super excited for that. But I guess now it's coming out later, like June or something now, like early June when it's launching. But
I think it's like 4 days of early access. So what you get is you get up to 4 days early access. You get an accelerated seasonal battle pass unlocked, and you also get the Wings of the Creator emote. So yeah, some pretty cool Diablo 4 stuff if you are a Diablo fan, which it seems like you are.
Yes.
There will be a developer update live stream on the 15th. So next week there will be a developer update live stream. So you'll be able to see that as well and see what they've got going on.
Heck yes. Well, you know what? To tie that to card games too, I hope that there's something in Hearthstone, like an event or something, to like celebrate the launch, because there was a brawl a long time ago in Hearthstone. There was like the secret cow level, and you got that sweet card back.
Oh, the Diablo card back?
The Diablo card back. It's still one of my favorite card backs. Like, I love that card back so much.
Sick.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope that they do something like that. And if anybody, that happens to have any sort of influence in that direction might listen to this, if there isn't anything, take note. is, people would like it. And people is me.
Me,
Yes.
we are people.
Me, I are people.
I've never played a
and I would
Diablo
like that.
game. Never played a Diablo game, but the art for Diablo is insane. It's absurd. It reminds me a lot of like
Oh
Death
my
Note,
gosh.
like anime
Yeah.
style artwork.
Oh, it's so good.
And the artwork on speaking of artwork on Hearthstone is fantastic as well, because the new Lich King board, and then like the anime or the intro opening monologue where it's normally Magni or the innkeeper. It's like the Lich King now, and he's like got this deep raspy voice, and he's like, "You
Yes.
have arrived, show me your strength." It's super cool.
It's so good. Yes. Oh gosh. Oh, well, good luck tomorrow in the event that you're playing for Yu-Gi-Oh. I do hope
Oh, thank you.
that it works out.
I am playing my version of the current best deck, and I think that my version, it is only like 2 cards different than everything else, but like those 2 cards make a world of difference. So hopefully those 2 cards will lead me to the promised land.
Heck yes. Well, Nathan was talking about that same kind of thing earlier, so I hope so. Oh, all right. Anything
Yeah,
else?
so 5 cards in 60 is what he was saying. Like 5 cards in
Yeah.
60 makes a difference. For me, it's like 2 cards in 40. So like it's a smaller amount of cards, but a smaller deck as well. So
yeah.
Anything else? No, I'm good.
No.
I'm gonna go try to get to Infinite and Marvel Snap, and also Legend and Hearthstone. So
Heck yeah, there you go. Well, thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And, if you know someone who would be interested in joining us, or if you are someone who would be interested in joining us, or even have suggestions, on amazing guests like we had today, please reach out to us. Let us know. You can email us at tccgroundtable@protonmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/TCCG Roundtable, and use that top pinned tweet to join into our Discord, chat with us in there, or you can find that Discord link in the description or show notes. Join in there and chat, or check out the video version. We do record this live on my YouTube as well, so you can head on over there and find it at youtube.com/dragonrider TCCG, and then everywhere that you can find audio podcasts. And of course, find us individually as well. That is always linked. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you at the roundtable.
have a good night.